So just wanted to sort of, I guess, reiterate something that Cheryl said, which was how lucky we are to have such a wonderful team in the pre-awards office who will help all of you, who help me get our grants together. And it's a large part of what we do, of course, in our job is writing grants. And so they are integral members of the team for us. One thing I want to just point out is when you get ready to, when you know you're going to be applying for a grant, please reach out to them soon. Don't wait until a week before it's due to reach out to them. And I'm sure Judy is going to say this later, and there are certain deadlines you have to meet. But honestly, just the minute tell them, even if it's not for another month and a half, because that way they can begin to plan. There's 300 faculty in the College of Natural Science, and so they need to be able to plan. And so knowing in advance, even if you haven't sent them anything, even if they can't start working on it, if they know something is coming, it really makes their life a lot easier. The second thing I want to point out is that there will be some grants over the years that you will apply for which require some sort of matching funds. Very often these matches, such as the Department of Energy, for instance, can be covered with sort of faculty effort time. And Judy can explain how that works. So that's not that big a deal. But sometimes these sort of cost shares require either real dollars or a reduced overhead rate or something like that. There's something that is sort of I don't want to say outside of the normal, but something where you actually need something from us. And again, this is where you need to come to me and you need to talk to me, and we'll do what we can to make it happen. I can on only very, very, very rare occasions is the ask something that we simply can't deliver. Okay, so we can almost always come up with whatever sort of cost share is required if we know in advance and are given enough time to put it together. Again, you can't wait until the week before it's due and say, hey, by the way, I need X, Y, and Z, because I may need to go to other colleges. I may need to talk to department chairs. I may need to talk to the Vice President for Research and Innovation, the provost, and these things don't just happen overnight. Getting the required matches from all these different units for whatever your grant requires. So you need to let me know as soon as possible. I'll bend over backwards to help to try to make sure that we can meet the match, but I need time to do it. So you just have to recognize that it's not just one person. If it was just coming to me and I could make the decision, that's great. But my checkbook isn't nearly that large. I assure you, it's actually a very, very, very small checkbook, which means I rely on the generosity of lots of other people. And so I need time to do that, okay? But again, we work with a great group of people, both here as well as in the other offices. We all want to help, and we're happy to do so. We just need a little time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Judy, I think, because Judy is a fantastic person and will tell you everything that you need to know. Listen to her and take notes. She will keep us all on the straight and narrow. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
To introduce you to my staff, because this may probably be the only time very seldom will you see them in person. So I think it always helps to put names, your faces to names. So first I want to introduce Danya Diaz, who's the Assistant Director of my office. And if Danya can come on and just say a quick hello so you can see her.
Hi, how is everyone? Welcome, and we're glad to have you.
She's going to be helping me with the presentation today. And then I wanted to introduce Amy Wilbur, one of our research administrators. Amy and Ina will both be bugging out pretty quickly, but they at least came online so that they can work on your grants. So, but they're coming online. So Amy, can you introduce yourself quickly?
Hi everyone, I'm Amy. Nice to meet you all. Hope everyone's keeping safe.
Great. And then Ina McNamara.
Hi everybody, I'm Ina McNamara. I'm one of the research administrators, and I also consider myself very lucky to work with my people, with our team. Yep, and lucky to contribute to science in a humble way. So looking forward to working with all of you.
Great. Thank you, Ina. And her husband is faculty here, so she knows a lot about research, even though she's hasn't been in our office. She's been in our office a couple of years now, but she's with her husband being a researcher. That gave her a great background. Okay, and our newest member of our department is Adele Simmons, and she just started about a month ago, but she's doing great for us so far. So Adele.
Hi everyone, Adele Simmons. Nice to meet you all, and I look forward to working with you.
Super, thank you, Adele. So that's our staff. And then myself, I'm Judy Brown. I'm the director of the office. I do proposals as well. The hope is that with Adele on board now, and when she's up to speed, I'll be doing less of proposal work, but you'll see me and I'll be working with you. And I stay involved in what's going on with all proposals, just to help make sure that things are moving forward smoothly, and just answering questions that everybody has. So I'll be functioning in that role, even if I'm not hands-on doing a full proposal load like everyone else will be. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen now so we can start the we have like a little presentation for you. So let's see, screen one, make sure I'm doing the right screen too, that always helps. Whoops, hold on, that's not the right screen. This is the right screen. I'm at work and my work monitors are backwards from my home monitor for the ones I work on most of the time at home. So this is the presentation. So whoops, and now I need to just change the display because it did it to me again. All right, that looks a little better. Can you all see that? On my screen, can you see okay, great, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll be swapping on and off. So myself and Danya Diaz will be doing the presentation today. So there'll be a point where we'll be swapping screen sharing so that Danya can pick up her portion. So there's a lot of material to cover, just to let you know. So we're going to move through it very quickly, but we will provide, this is being recorded. I've already hit record. So it's being recorded, and we will also, so that'll be online. And then we'll be sending you this presentation plus a lot of other information to have on hand regarding the university and how things happen here at MSU. After the fact, I'm still working on updating them. We've just been incredibly busy. So I've got it almost ready to go. It should be sending it out to you, I would think, by the beginning of next week at the latest, and I'll send it to all the new faculty members. So one thing we wanted to provide, this is a lovely website that comes from these are places to go where you might be able to find funding opportunities and links to them. And Berkeley does this really lovely website for new and young faculty opportunities. And rather than, steal from them, we just give them all the credit and say, check out Berkeley's site. It's really great. And it's got a lot of really nice grants and grant opportunities, especially that are targeted towards new faculty and young faculty members. So that would be one place you can go. We've given you a link to grants.gov, to the NIH website, NSF, FedConnect. FedConnect is where you'll find like Department of Energy things and some of that. Office of Naval Research for some of you who will be involved in that. If you're looking for maybe a foundation to see if you can get funding through them, the RFP bulletin from Philanthropy News Digest, that's a good place to go. There's this lovely website at our library that has information on grant resources, which can be really helpful as well. And then we do have some internal grants just to MSU, and we've given you the link to that webpage so that you can see what some of those might be. There's different kinds of funding that you might be able to find there. Okay, so what's the definition of a new investigator? It's a little different for NSF and NIH, who are probably the two main sponsors that we work with and who really identify new investigators. So I've given you the definitions for both. I don't want to sit here and read these screens to you because you can all read and you'll get this presentation. So I just want to make sure that if you're working with them, you know what would be considered a beginning investigator. And there is a spot in NSF where if you are a beginning investigator and you're doing an NSF grant, we need to click a box that says you're a new investigator, a beginning investigator. So it's important for you to let us know that, okay? All right. Now there's some MSU kind of grant writing resources that you might you might want to use. The biggest one is, and I still have BPRGS, and I apologize, I thought I got rid of all those. It's now the Vice President for Research and Innovation. So do you see that? I need to fix it, I will. So they have a grant editing and a consulting program. And Tom Holland specializes in NIH, and they have another person there. I don't think it's Heidi Smith Parker anymore. I believe it's another person. And I have a quick, they have another person who specializes in NSF applications, and we're going to be sending you information on how to request assistance from them. You need to have the bulk of your proposal done way ahead of time so that they have time to work with you on your proposal. But what will happen is you can request assistance from them. It requires matching funding. So from the college, I think, and from the department. So there is a cost associated with this, and we will send you information about what the cost is and how that all works. I was scrambling trying to find it, and I think it's in, I think I have to go back a year in email to find the actual documents. So if you have any questions about this, Cheryl Sisk will be able to help you. And basically you would fill out a form to request this service, and you would send it to Cheryl and to, I believe, Eric Hegg as well. And then they will get back with you, and they'll approve the funds, and then you can work with this group. People have really enjoyed working with them, and they're just a great group to work with, and people found them extremely helpful. They know like the best practices, and they can really help you develop your proposal and make it a pitch, because that's kind of what it is. You're pitching your science to your sponsor. So they can help you with that. We've given you the website for them, and we'll be sending you information on how to use them and the costs involved. So stay tuned, you'll get that from us soon. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't, because I'm a co-host, I can't actually officially raise my hand. I just wanted to tell everyone that yes, there is a cost involved, but it's not going to be a cost to you, and it's really not going to be a cost to your department. And as far as I know, when we've approved these grant consulting arrangements, and thereby committing college support for us, the last I heard, we have never once been billed for this
that's
service.
nice.
So it's theoretically, yes, the college is supporting faculty in taking advantage of these grant consulting services, but you should not worry for 1 second that, oh, if I do this, somebody, this is gonna, be money that, can't go to something else or someone else. Don't worry about that. Yeah, and the form is just for us to have for our records and for the grant consulting program to just sort of have an official, arrangement made.
Great.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you. I knew Cheryl could explain it a whole lot better than I could. So. All right, and then there's another office we wanted to just make you aware of on campus. This is through the Vice President for Research and Innovation. There's an office called Research Facilitation and Dissemination, and they can provide some amount of grant writing assistance and proofing and things like that they say for approved cross-disciplinary, all-university or multi-department proposals. So they don't tend to get involved in single proposals. They also can help with broader impacts for NSF. And they can do that on individual proposals as well. We did get an email from them at the time we were working on NSF career grants this July and August, letting us know that they would be available to help with that. But I will say, as far as their office would be very helpful for helping with some of the grant writing sort of things. They do some of the same things that my office does, and you wouldn't. You wouldn't use them to submit a grant. You would work through our office. We may also be working with the Research Facilitation and Dissemination Office, you know, kind of you and my office and then them in conjunction, but the proposal would come out of my office. And that's at the request of our upper administration here in the college has asked that my office have primary responsibility for those proposals. If you're doing what they call a limited submission, where only a few proposals can go out from the university and you're selected to be one of those, they will probably tell you to contact this office for assistance, but actually you're still going to contact my office. So it can get a little confusing, but anytime you've got a grant coming out the door, or you're getting ready to work on a proposal and where the money's going to come to MSU if it's funded, if it's a fellowship and the money's coming to MSU, anything, if the money's coming to MSU, contact my office. If you're uncertain, contact my office, because we just had a situation this week where an hour and a half before a grant was due, a faculty member contacted us for the first time and it needed to come through my office. And yeah, we couldn't really help him. And it was unfortunate. So I just, you know, if you're uncertain, anything, just let us know and we will, and ask the question of us. If we find out that you don't have to go through our office, we'll let you know that. But for the most part, you're probably just about always going to have help from my office. And I think Joey has his hand raised.
Yeah, I had just a quick question in terms of transferring grants.
Sure.
In general, just, okay, that's what I figured.
Let me know what it is, contact the office. I usually try to work with the grant transfers myself, just so my staff can kind of keep regular proposals moving forward. And it's because it's such a start and stop kind of process in some ways. So send us an email letting us know what it is you're trying to transfer and from where, and we can get started on that.
Okay, sounds good. It wouldn't be till January.
Okay, sounds good. So just contact us and we're the ones who will help you with doing that as well, getting grants transferred here to MSU. Okay, and I've given you the websites for these people as well. Different sponsor resources that you might need. NIH, they've got this lovely grant basics and how to apply. They've got just information, really basic information about how to apply for an NIH grant. That would kind of might help you as you're trying to formulate your research if you're applying to NIH. The National Science Foundation has their grant proposal guide. It's called the PAPPG. Heard it called the PAP guide. I've heard it called all kinds of things, but they update this annually and we've given you a link to it. And they really don't have that kind of how to apply information out there. They just expect you to follow the grant guide. And my office, one of the things that we do to our new employees is we make them read that guide. So they read it, you know, they know that information and we refer to it practically daily, you know, just to make sure we're giving the right information back to people. The USDA, if you're going to be applying to them, they have this nice site where they talk about general tips for grant success with them. So that's a good place. And then they have what they call the NEFA application guide. And NEFA is kind of their grant, the grant arm in a way to speak of the USDA. And so they have a guide there, but every time that you submit a new grant with them, it might change. So we just, there's, when they publish and say we want, you know, a solicitation saying we want to request, we want proposals for this, they'll give you a grant guide that you should be using at the same time. And we find with USDA, it can change between, you know, I can be working on one proposal with USDA and I'm using one guide, and working with USDA on another proposal due around the same time, and it's referring me to maybe an older guide. So you always use the guide that they come up with if you do USDA. Department of Energy, they don't really have they have a place where you can go and look at funding opportunities. They don't really have a guide to submitting a grant to Department of Energy. we can work with you on that. Yeah, they're a little more kind of free form. There's definite things that they want to see, and their announcement for the grant will tell you exactly what they expect to see in the application. And then NASA has their system called Inspires, and they've got a nice grant guide. And of course, then they've got, for those of you in physics and astronomy, I'm sure you've seen the NASA Roses solicitations, those huge books that come out with all their grant opportunities for the next year. And then there's also instructions within that for how to submit and what you need to provide. We do a lot of work with all these sponsors. Okay, so the process is there's basically two things that are going to happen at the same time. So you're going to be out there writing your science and doing your part, but there's this whole administrative piece that has to be done. It always has to be done. Even if you're requesting $2,000 from a grant from a sponsor, it's still got to get done. And it's kind of the same amount of work, whether you're asking for $2,000 or $2 million. So we need to make sure that these are both kind of moving forward. My office is here to help you with that administrative part. So above my office at the university level, the people who can sign on behalf of Michigan State University, that's the Sponsored Programs Administration, and we interact with them all the time. And they've got kind of two pieces to them. So there's the pre-award side, which is, you know, we're going to submit a grant. We're going to, you know, they're going to help us. They're going to help my office get your grant submitted. And actually, they're going to be, many times, they're going to be the final people who go in and approve on behalf of Michigan State. So, and they've got two arms. They've got the proposal side, which is the one we work with the most, but then they also have a side, and this is where Adele came to us from, awards and agreements. And they go in and every time we get an award, they have to go through and make sure that that we can live with all the terms of the award and of the agreement. Sometimes that can take longer to figure out than others, because sometimes they try and put restrictions on us that Michigan State as a public institution can't accept. And so there can be quite a bit of negotiation that has to go on in order to accept an award. Then once your award is gotten and you've got your award, you've got your account number, you're moving forward, then you have what we call the post-award group, or the Contract and Grant Administration. And they're going to work with you and your departments, because at that point my office really isn't involved anymore. And we kind of pass it off to your department administrators, and they'll help you if you need some kind of an award revision maybe, or if you need some special permission, or you need a no-cost extension. They'll help you with those. There's a transactions group that'll review all the transactions having to do with grants to make sure that they meet all of the cost principles and that there's no issues. There's a reporting group that will help take care of doing all the reporting that has to happen to all the various sponsors. And then there's a cash management and costing group, and that group will be getting the money into MSU. So there's a whole mechanism that has to go on where there's money that they have to draw down, and they can't draw down too much, they can't draw down too little. So it keeps them busy every day doing that. So that's kind of the university level arm, and they're under the Vice President for Research and Innovation. They're part of that team, but they're the ones that my office we work with them on an extremely close basis. We are in contact with them every day. So I said previously, Sponsored Programs Administration, they are the only ones who can, well, when you're working with a business, if you're doing an industry grant, like you're going to work with a pharmaceutical company, Bristol Myers Squibb. I'll say that one just because I have one going on right now with Bristol Myers Squibb. Instead of sponsored programs dealing with it, it would be the Business Connect, who work with MSU and work with faculty with industry. And Business Connect kind of then becomes what Sponsored Programs Administration would typically be. And they'll work with you on getting everything in place, getting the agreements and everything in place. And they are the other people, between they and Sponsored Programs, they are the only ones who can approve for anything, sign anything on behalf of Michigan State. You can never commit Michigan State University to anything. I can't. Dr. Duxbury cannot. Dr. Hegg cannot. None of us can. We cannot. Only the people in central administration who have very specific permission to do that are able to. The people in sponsored programs and the people in Business Connect, not all of them, but many of them have permission to do that. So if you're ever presented with anything that needs to be signed on behalf of MSU, do not sign it. Because it cannot bind Michigan State to anything because you don't have permission to do that. So if that comes up, talk to either your business administrator in your college, your chair, or come to my office and say, hey, I got this in the mail, I don't know who to send it to. And we can help you figure out where it needs to go so that it gets the signature that it needs. And this is for research related stuff. There's all kinds of other stuff that has to be signed on behalf of the university. And there are other people around campus, like in purchasing and some other places, who can sign those things. But when it comes to research, you can't sign, your chair can't sign, the dean can't sign. It has to be done by someone who has been specifically given that permission on behalf of the university. And I've seen grants not be able to be accepted because someone signed who was not the right person. And then the PI was all excited. They thought they were going to get this grant, they were going to get this money, and then there were reasons that Michigan State could not accept it. So work with us and we can help you through that. Okay, so the Office of Sponsored Programs, they're the people that we work with the most. They're the pre-award arm. They're going to help us get those grants submitted. They're going to work with us to get that done. They have a deadline policy over there, and we call it 10-6-3. So 10 business days before the sponsor deadline, we need to be notifying OSP of the intent to submit a proposal. So you notify my office and we're notifying OSP within a day or two, usually within a day or so of you notifying us. We get it assigned to someone, that person's going to let OSP know we're working with you. 6 business days, and keep in mind these are business days, so if you got a holiday in there, it's going to make it even longer. 6 business days before the deadline, they are expecting that the budget and the justification for the grant are going to be finalized, and they're going to be at their office. It's going to be at their office for approval. And then 3 days before the sponsor deadline, that the complete and final proposal is going to be submitted to OSP by 5 p.m. So this is the policy for OSP. And my office needs time to upload documents and provide them to you for review. So sending me final documents by 4:55 p.m. on that 3 business days before is not going to get your proposal to OSP by 5 p.m. It just, we've yet to build a magic wand that will magically make all those documents go into a system. So it does take us, some time to get that done, to review the documents and get them uploaded. So that's the OSP policy. If we meet all of these things, then your proposal is considered an on-time proposal and it gets priority for submission. So we have an internal deadline then as well, which is kind of a little bit different, a little bit later than the OSP one. And we lovingly refer to this as our drop dead policy. So the reason, because we've had this, we've had a lot of problems with this in the past. So we say, okay, so if we don't have it to OSP, by that next morning, the day, 5 o'clock it's due to OSP to be done and complete. By the next morning, which is basically 8 a.m., 2 business days before the deadline, my office must have all components, everything, all sub-awards, documents from other institutions. We need to have everything in our office by this time and this date, with everything there that we can then try and yes, your proposal's late for OSP, but we need to have everything in our office and everything to us so that we can start getting everything uploaded, get you a copy of the proposal to review, get the proposal routing for approvals, get everything done we need to do. We'll talk about that a little further later. But you must let us, you've got to give us this time. If you don't meet this deadline, your proposal may not be able to be submitted. If you don't have those documents to us, you're probably going to have to go and ask permission from Dr. Hegg to be able to move forward, because my office at that point, if you haven't gotten them to us, we're not working on it any longer without the permission from Dr. Hegg to move forward. Because we've gotten burned really badly on this a number of times, where faculty don't get final documents to us till 5 minutes before the actual real live deadline. And we're scrambling, trying, we've submitted like with 3 or 4 seconds to spare. And then that doesn't give anybody time to go in and review a proposal to see if it actually looks the way it's supposed to. So we need to give you time to review the completed proposal in case there's something that needs to be fixed. So that's why that's part of the reason we instituted this deadline policy. Plus my office is swamped. We work on over probably close to 750 proposals a year. We submit 600 and some of those, like 680. Some of them end up not moving forward for various reasons, but we submit a lot. And the only way we can stay up on everything, we 1 week, not long ago, we submitted 33 proposals. And Adele had not started with us yet. So there were 4 of us, and we submitted 33 proposals. We got it done, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of coordination. So we need your help with that. The other thing we want to let you know is that we need to know about your proposal at least 5 business days, like 1 week before your deadline, or very likely we are not going to be able to help you, because it's not fair to people who have been working with us for a while for us to drop everything, stop working on their proposal, and spend all the time on yours when you didn't give us the notice that we needed. So we don't like to do this. We hate saying no, but sometimes we don't have a choice. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. So wish it didn't have to be this way, but it's what works for us. So we've kind of given you a timeline for your proposal. And everybody goes, wow, this is crazy because we tell you to start working on it so far ahead of time. But I think if you talk to anyone who's submitted grants, you think it's not going to take as much time as it does. The smallest things will take you a lot more time than you actually believe will. So this is kind of an idea, 12 to 10 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks before your deadline. Hopefully you're notifying us. If you know you're submitting a grant, contact us, let us know. We'll put you on the books. If you decide not to submit, no problem. We'll take you off the books. It's not a problem at all. We're not upset if the day before or the day of you decide, hey, I cannot submit. I'm missing a real major piece of my grant that I really need. I just can't do it. You're not going to hear any of us give you any hassle about that. It's going to be, okay, no problem. That happens. Thanks. We'll let OSP know it's not moving forward. Office of Sponsored Programs is OSP. We'll let them know it's not moving forward, and everything's fine. It's not a problem. But let us know if you're thinking about it. If you're going to do an NSF career grant, more than just, 2 weeks ahead of time, you're going to be doing that. So let us know. 6 to 10 weeks, you should contact your colleagues. You should start drafting things. You can read this on the presentation. 4 to 6 weeks, you maybe have internal reviewers. You might want to reach out to people in your discipline or people in your department who might be able to review your proposal for you and give you some pointers. You might need to follow up and resolve issues that might have come up. And we should begin drafting that budget and justification during that time. Sometimes you need time to think about what you're going to be asked, what you're going to be doing in your research before you really have an idea of what you need in your budget. 2 to 4 weeks before the deadline, you're finalizing, you're trying to assemble things. Hopefully we're routing what we call a proposal development document, and we'll let you know more about that here in the presentation. And 1 week before, what would be lovely is if the week before the actual deadline, it's submitted to OSP for their review and submission. And if it's an S2S, S2S means system to system submission. So that means that sometimes we're going to submit right from our Kuali Koea system straight to grants.gov. And like I said, we will talk about that a little further here. But we may not be able to actually route for approvals until we have all your documents to be able to get them done. So it's always a good idea to try to shoot for a week before, trying to get things done ahead of time. So when you contact us, and our email is at the end of this presentation for you. And of course, when I send you the documents, I'll send them from this email as our email address as well. So you want to give us the solicitation number or give us a link to it so that we know what you're applying to. If you have potential subawards or collaborators and you know about them at that time, let us know that you're going to have maybe a subaward with another institution or something like that. We'll talk about subawards again here in this presentation. We're going to give you a grant submission timeline. We're going to give you a timeline for when your budget's due to OSP, when you would have your proposal to OSP if it were going to be, by their timeline. And then we're going to give you that all important, drop dead date and time of 8 a.m. that morning when we need to have everything. And then, whoops, I went too fast. And then while you're not going to be contacting us, right around that same time that you're letting us know about it, start working on identifying some of those potential reviewers for your grant. And I would work within your department, maybe talk to your chair to get some ideas if you don't have people. Some of you may have faculty mentors assigned to you, and those would be great people. But if not, reach out to your chair, because your chair could be a great asset in trying to figure out who might be appropriate to help review things for you. So you're going to look at, so you need to identify potential issues with your grant. And these are just a whole group of things that could come up. So you need to know about your registration requirements. So you know, if you're submitting to NSF, do you have a FastLane ID? You may have one that isn't affiliated with Michigan State. Maybe it's at your previous institution. That's great. Let us know, and we can work with the Office of Sponsored Programs to make sure that you get affiliated with MSU as well. We don't have to get you a new ID, we just got to get you affiliated. Do you have an ERA? It's called an ERA Commons ID with NIH. Again, you may have had one at your previous institution, and we just need to make sure that we get it affiliated with MSU. If not, my office can help facilitate getting that set up for you. There's always issues of conflict of interest, financial and otherwise. So you might have someone on your grant who might have a conflict of some kind of financial conflict. You may be working with a company, but you own stock in the company. There's any number of things that can come up that you might need to disclose. It's not that it's going to necessarily stop the proposal from happening. It's just something that we need to identify, and it needs to get managed. Are there patent or copyright or IP publication restrictions? Are there issues related to ownership of data or deliverables? Do they have any restrictions on those? Sometimes those can be deal breakers in a proposal, because MSU is a public institution. There are certain things, we have to be able to publish. And if they tell us we can't, then we may not be able to work. We may not be able to work with that company and work on that proposal. Export control certifications. Are you working with if you're working with an international collaborator of some kind, there's a good chance you're going to have to do an export control form to identify whether there might be any potential export control issues. That becomes more of a problem, as you can imagine, in the past few years, that's become much more of an issue. Then the whole regulatory affairs. Are you working with human subjects? Are you working with vertebrate animals? Are you working with blood materials or fluids, radioisotopes, recombinant DNA? All these things, you just need to be aware of these, because if you say, we'll send you a list of questions that we need you to answer, and if you say yes to any of these, then what it does is it might kick them off. If you're funded, you'll be hearing from, you'll have to work with various regulatory affairs offices on campus to make sure that you've got your human subjects approval in place, your animal approval, that you're following, all of the right measures and safety guidelines and everything else for working with pathogens and biohazards and the hazardous and regulated chemicals. So it kind of kicks in some different groups on campus get notified, and then they're pulled in, and they will start working with you to make sure that you've got everything in order and we're meeting all the requirements. Other things, required cost share, a match, or other MSU commitments. And that was what Dr. Head was talking about earlier. He's the one you would contact. If my office knows that there's cost share involved, we'll be talking to you and talking to him as well, just to make sure that we're starting that process quickly. Is your research going to happen on campus, or is a large portion of it going to happen off campus? Do we need space? Do we need extra space? Are there renovations or alterations that must occur in order for this research to happen? There's extra people, then we need to get a plan in place through the facilities and planning people, and that all has to be part of what gets listed when we start routing things for approvals. Everybody needs to be aware that those things are going to be happening. Indirect costs, that's also called overhead, and F&A, or facilities and administrative costs. There could be limitations. So we need to be looking for restrictions within the solicitation on whether there are limitations. MSU is pretty good about saying, if the solicitation or the sponsor states that that no overhead is allowed, or if the sponsor states that only 20% is allowed, or whatever it may be, MSU, if it says that it is not allowed, we're good about saying no problem, we'll accept that. There are some caveats to that, but if you're working with a business, but for the most part, that's the general rule. So, and these are things we're looking for as well in my office. Are you doing international work? In which case, maybe we should be talking to the Office of International Programs to make sure that we're budgeting everything you're going to need for that international work. Because sometimes if you're budgeting people who are going to be maybe in Malawi or another country who are going to be working there, you might have to budget extra money for them in a salary, because you have to budget like a 13th, I think, like an extra month for their vacation time or something. There's these different rules in all these different countries. And you need to make sure that you're covering not only fringe benefits here at MSU that could be there, but there may be other requirements that I just did one where someone's actually going to be doing the work in Germany. So we had to budget some portion of his fringe benefits here at MSU, just a small piece of it. But then we also had to include all the German fringe benefits. So we reached out and were able to get that information. Is it a limited submission? Are they saying in the solicitation, we're only going to let each institution overall submit 1 grant or 2 grants, or however many it may be? If that's the case, then there's a whole pre-proposal process that has to be done like 8 weeks beforehand, that we need to send to the Vice President for Research and Innovation, to their office, so that they can then decide who at MSU is going to be allowed to move forward. There might be 20 or 30 people vying for just a few slots. And then are there specific data requirements? So you won't be doing it now, but later in your career, you may be looking at doing like a training grant. And some of those training grants, Danya's working on one right now, they require an insane amount of data for them. And Cheryl can attest to this. She's been a program director for a T32 training grant from NIH here on campus. She was for neuroscience for many years, and there's a lot of data you have to pull together in order to submit a grant. And we start usually working on those at least 6 months ahead of time of when it's actually due, in order to gather all that information and sift through it. So these are just some of the examples of things that can come up. And so we just basically need to say, you got to get these, we're going to work with you to address them early. You don't want to hold off on anything like this. You just want to be aware that these things can come up and kind of keep an eye on them. And if you think it's going to be an issue, reach out sooner rather than later, so that we can get them solved way before your grant is actually due. There are registration requirements. We just talked about just a short time ago. If you already have a FASTLane ID or ERA, we need to affiliate you. What you need to know is MSU is registered in every site. So you're going to see in the solicitation that it's going to give you pages worth of instructions on how to actually register your organization. You can ignore all that stuff because MSU is already registered. So anything like that, don't even worry about it. While you're the PI of the grant, MSU is will be the actual recipient of the grant funding. So it's MSU who has to get registered and everything, and we are already there. We can work with you. Whoops, sorry, I went too quick there. We can work with you to get an ERA Commons ID, and in Fastlane and research.gov, and then PAMS, which is related to DOE, and then Inspires, which is related to NASA. You can go in and create a user account and register, but then you need to make sure you're letting us know so we can help you and OSP make sure that your account that you just set up gets affiliated with MSU so that there's no hiccup on the day of submission. And we can help you with that. So the conflict of interest here at MSU, for every research project that you submit, MSU requires that you do a project-specific disclosure of all significant financial interests related to your MSU responsibilities. The project-specific one is going to be related to that grant. So if you may have a conflict of interest, but it doesn't have anything at all to do with this particular grant, in which case you might say, no, I don't have any conflict with this particular grant at this moment. There is also an annual conflict of interest disclosure that has to be done, and the website is, given it to you there, coi.msu.edu, and you can go out to the KC system, QualiCOIA system. We will get there. We're talking about it. I know we talk about it a lot. It's the electronic research system we use here at MSU. It's called KC or QualiCOIA, or KC for short. It's an electronic system we all use. Some grants are actually submitted through that KC system. Some of them, like if you're going to, you might do it in another system like Fastlane. And so we're going to do, but we still have to route things through this system. It's where you're going to go in, you're going to do all your approvals for it. The departments are going to approve, the colleges are going to approve, sponsored programs is going to approve. And then there's also a, within that same system, there's a place where you can do your annual conflict of interest disclosure and your project-based ones as well. And then if you're working with NIH, PHS-funded projects, which is mostly for us, NIH projects, there's conflict of interest training that you must do. And so if you go to the COI website, there's a button there that'll tell you, that'll take you right to where you need to sign up for the training and then complete it. And they do check on that. So you can't submit a proposal until you have done your project-based disclosure, your annual disclosure is up to date. And if it's NIH, you also have to have that training done. So training takes maybe 20 minutes roughly. And I think it has to be redone every maybe 3 years, I think is the training. The disclosure, the annual disclosure, of course, is every year. And then the other one is project-based. So institutionally limited proposals, and we've talked about this. They can be limited to 1 per institution, 1 per college. The pre-proposal has to be done. There's a link to where it's at, Another reason that you need to let us know as quickly as you're going to submit a proposal, because sometimes we've surprised faculty members. They didn't realize their proposal was institutionally limited. And if they don't give us enough time, it's possible that they'll miss that internal competition that they need to do, that pre-proposal competition, and then they won't be allowed to submit. So it's good to know those things ahead of time and let us know. And we've given you the link. There's like a form that you'll have to fill out and submit and provide them some information on your project so they can make a decision. Communication is so important. You want to make sure you're confirming your participation of all your MSU colleagues, the collaborators, consultants, your subawardees. You want to make sure you're getting an outline, and if you're working with a lot of people, you want to make sure that that you're assigning sections for them to complete, so you're not stuck doing everything. But you have to give them deadlines. You want to start collecting budget information from everyone. You want to start getting, you always are going to need their bio sketches, their current pending support. You might need letters of support from them and other things from them. My office can help you collect those. So just let us know and we can help you do that. But it's really important to begin communicating and working early on it. Don't wait too long to contact them. Sometimes they might need to go through a whole process of getting a little, a subaward proposal together and a budget and everything together, get it approved through their people, get everything signed, get it back to us here at MSU, and then, and only then, can we turn around and get our budget finalized. And we will be discussing that in the next portion, which I think is the part that we're going to be having Danya do. Yep, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and Danya's going to, she's going to take over and share her screen. Did anyone have any questions? I know we're like really, flying through this. It will be available, recorded after the fact, but there's a lot of information to cover, and we don't want to make you sit here for hours and hours and hours.
Oh my gosh. Is everyone seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Judy.
All right.
Does anyone have any questions before I move on?
I think we're good.
Okay. So one of the first things that you will work on with our office is the budget. And in the next few slides, I'm just going to go over all the different budget items that we would be including in a budget, or potentially including. So the first of these is salaries and wages. It's important to note that KC, the Kuali Koia system, does calculate your effort based on percentages, but eventually those percentages get translated into person months, particularly when we're working with federal sponsors. And within salaries and wages, of course, we have faculty who can be annual 12-month appointments or academic 9-month plus 3 months of summer. Postdoctoral research associates are always an annual 12-month appointment. MSU has a minimum salary for postdocs. It's $48,675 right now, 71. And so we would automatically use that minimum unless your department has another minimum, which has to be higher than that. But we've communicated with the departments and they've given us some guidelines, some of them, and we will adjust according to those guidelines. Graduate students, by default, graduate students are 50% full-time equivalent, so they will be working 20 hours per week, but they will be working 100% of their time on your project. Undergraduate students, they can also be graduate students. Sometimes you pay graduate students over the summer, and hourly labor. This refers to hourly labor during the academic year. There's no fringe. Over the summer, there is fringe. And finally, we might consider technical or clerical support, but this is very, very rare. It would have to be allowable by the sponsor. It would have to be allowable by the specific solicitation. And if it is allowable, it will be someone who is 100% dedicated to the grant. We can never support, at least on a federal grant, we can't support standard administrative people. So the next slide. I am sharing my screen, but the slides are not moving. Okay, here we go.
Oh, I think you got to go up further. Are we going the wrong way?
I am going the wrong way. How do I make it back? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Yay, this is being recorded. Okay. So, so after we look at the salaries and wages, we'll have to incorporate the fringe benefits. At MSU, every person has an individual fringe benefit. This is called specific identification fringe. And the reason everyone has an individual fringe benefit is because our fringe benefits package consists of some of them are fixed amounts and some of them are percentages of your salary. So when you take that in combination and apply it to a particular salary level, it will give you different percentages. So when we do fringe benefits, we have to use the specific identification fringe rate that is given to us by the KC proposal, the KC system. Fringe benefits for graduate students consist of health and tuition, although tuition isn't listed under fringe, it's listed elsewhere. And these are amounts that are established every year by the university. And finally, hourly workers, if we're talking about students, during the AY, they do not have to pay fringe. During the summer, we do have to apply FICA. And if we're talking about an hourly worker that's going to work full-time for 90 hours or 90 days or more, then we'll have to also include $5,384 for health insurance per the ACA. The next items that we would consider would be equipment. Will you have any equipment? This is, equipment is basically any standalone item that has a cost of $5,000 or more and a useful life of 1 year or more. If what you are buying are components of something that will become a large piece of equipment, and these components cost less than $5,000, it is still considered equipment. It's considered fabricated equipment. Travel will have domestic or international. At proposal time, it's very important to include international travel if that is what you intend to do, because most sponsors will, they won't allow international travel to be charged to their grant unless it was pre-approved. So if you forget to include it and then you want to travel internationally, you need prior approval from your fiscal officer. So at proposal time, if you know you want to travel internationally, we should include that. And also we need to name the countries or potential countries that you expect to travel to. Participant support costs. All right, participant support costs are basically, they are stipend allowances, travel allowances, subsistence allowances, and other that are paid to participants in a training event or a conference, not MSU employees, not collaborators, and these are not patient incentives. So to make it a little simpler, it has to be a training event and it is not paid to MSU employees, even if they are participating in that training event. If you're paying someone to participate in a survey or in some other research study, that is not considered participant support costs. And any costs associated with your event, such as paying your collaborators for attendance, those are not listed under participant support costs. Why is this important? It's because participant support costs are restricted funds. When they are approved, they are actually put in a separate account and they cannot be used for anything else. Also, the total amount of participant support costs is deducted from your modified direct cost base, which we'll touch upon later, and that determines your indirect costs. So finally, the next few categories of expenses would be materials and supplies, important that they must be project related, publications, consultants. If you have a consultant, their rate must be stated. We can't just have a random lump sum. We have to justify it by their rate and how many days or hours they expect to dedicate to the project. Computer services, subawards, which are exempt from IDC during the first $25,000 only. and other things such as the tuition remission for the grad assistants, service center fees, and research subject incentives. Now, facilities and administrative costs, which are also known as indirect costs, those are negotiated with the federal government, specifically with the Department of Health and Human Services, about every 5 years. Their intent is to support the university infrastructure. So these costs, which will be added to your overall budget, they are distributed within the university to support things such as electricity, labs, and other physical structures, administrative support, etc. The current MSU rate for standard research is on campus is 56.5%. There are other rates that are also negotiated, such as the 26% for off-campus. There's also an other activities rate, which is 36% if it's not research. And I believe that the education rate is 8%, but we will help you determine which rate is applicable to your particular project. I mentioned the modified total direct costs earlier. That is your total direct cost minus tuition, minus equipment, and minus participant support costs. Once you get that calculation, you apply the 56.5% or whichever percent is applicable, and that will determine what the total indirect costs or F&A costs will be for that particular budget. Sponsors can have different rates. They can calculate it differently. For example, the 56.5 is the standard federal rate, but if you work with a foundation, they might have a 20% rate. We also have some federal sponsors that have their own way of calculating, which results in a different rate, such as the USDA. But again, our office will be helping you determine which one is applicable to your budget. And if there is a reduced rate, less than the 56.5%, we need to be able to justify it. So if it's a foundation and their RFA says, our rate is 20%, that's fine. We have it in writing, their rate is 20%. If on the other hand, the rate that is being applied to the budget is less than what the sponsor allows, that's called a waiver. And you would need to have prior approval at MSU for a waiver, and they are very, very rarely approved. So after we have a budget justification, we have to always accompany it with the, after we have the budget, we have to accompany it with a budget justification. In the budget justification, each item needs to be justified. You need to explain what is, for example, what is included in your supplies? What do you need? How much do you need? And why do you need it? One important thing is not to list anything that is not being included in your budget. Because if you list something that's not in your budget, it's considered cost share. Certain sponsors, such as NSF, do not allow cost share. And if you include it, it might affect your proposal. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that once you mention anything that is cost share, say you're not working with NSF, once you mention anything in your proposal that is considered cost share, if it is funded, it becomes a commitment on your part. At that point, you have to track it and you have to quantify it and you have to report it. So unless the cost share is required, the recommendation is not to include it. Also, another tip that we have is to not include numbers in your budget justification, just because we usually go back and forth, changing numbers. Even when the PI in our office decide, yes, this is the final, then we send it to OSP. OSP reviews it. They may require some changes. And in that back and forth, if we have actual numbers in the text of the justification, it becomes a little bit harder because we have to go back and make sure that all the numbers are updated and everything adds up properly. So although there are some sponsors that will require that kind of detail, if they don't, it's best just to leave it out. It just makes everything easier. And a final point that we wanted to mention here is in your justification, when you mention your effort, don't mention course buyout, please. And if you talk about collaborators, let's not talk about honorariums. Those are just terms that federal sponsors, they don't want to fund that. So there are different ways of labeling those things. An important thing that we need to discuss is the difference between a subaward, a consultant, and a contractor. Basically, a subaward is a partner. So whatever institution is participating in a subaward, they are equally responsible for the programmatic activities, for planning and execution, for reporting, for conduct, for all of those items. They are responsible for meeting compliance requirements and following all the guidelines established by the sponsor. So basically, as I said, they're a partner. A consultant and a contractor, on the other hand, they just provide services. The consultant provides their expertise. They're not responsible for any of the design, conduct, or reporting. And in that case, MSU does own all of the resulting intellectual property. A contractor usually is a dealer, distributor, merchant, or other seller of some good. And they will have established rates. They provide quotes. It's a competitive environment. You can equally go with one contractor or another, or one consultant or another. But in your proposal, more likely than not, you only have one institution that you have as a partner, which would be the subaward. And I hope that this makes it clear for everyone. Now, if you have a collaborator in another institution who is going to work with you and they're saying, I can just be a consultant, you have to make sure that they consult. You have to make sure that they check with their Office of Sponsored Programs before they commit to being a consultant, because more likely than not, the institution will require a subaward. They, because in their collaboration with you, they're probably working within their role as faculty of that institution, which means the institution wants a role as well. They want a piece of it. And they will want it to be a subaward so that they can also include F&A to support their own costs, etc. So it's very important that if anyone just says, I'll just be a consultant, that they check with their Office of Sponsored Programs first to make sure that that is possible. If that doesn't happen at the time and it happens after the fact, I don't want to confuse anyone, but it will have a really negative impact on your overall budget. It will eat into your budget, making that change. So if you're going to have a subaward in your proposal, you need to let us know right away, and we need to be able to obtain from you the name of the PI, the institution, and hopefully an administrative contact. If we don't get that name right away, we'll make the contact with the PI to try to get that name right away, because it is easier for research administrators to communicate with other research administrators when it comes to the internal bureaucracy of the things that we need from each other. So again, we'll need to know the institution, the PI, and hopefully an administrative contact. Then we will reach out to them with enough time to let them complete their own internal process. And we will request a final approved budget, a justification, a statement of work, and a sub-recipient commitment form signed by their authorized official. Again, this takes time, just like your proposal is going to take time to do within MSU, their subaward is going to take some time within their institution. So we need to get started early, so that we give them enough time to get it to us early, because their budget, if they are a subaward, is going to be incorporated into your budget. And we cannot do that, so we can't finalize your budget until we have final approved numbers from the subaward institution. So that's why if we have a subaward, I'm going to reach out, ask for these documents, and I'm going to give them a deadline for sending those documents to me that is earlier by at least about 2 weeks than the sponsor deadline. And if, on the other hand, MSU is the subaward, the process is basically the same except inverted. So we can either reach out to them, more likely than not, they'll reach out to us, and they will want, you know, they'll have the information from you about who the administrative contact is, etc. And then they'll reach out to us and say, we need these items from you, which are the same items that we would have requested: the budget, the justification, statement of work, and subrecipient commitment form. And again, when they reach out to us, they will likely give us a deadline that is somewhat earlier than the sponsor deadline. So we need to get it all started early. And that's it for my part. Does anybody have any questions?
Can you unshare now? So that I can, and then that way while we're waiting for questions, I think Deborah Duxbury, you've got yours. Oh, there you are. Good.
Yeah. I have a question. With when I interface with IRB, because I'm an academic specialist, I basically need to get sponsorship to have the designation as a PI.
Right.
So I am wondering, from your perspective, and perhaps you've seen potential sponsors also require you know, a clear-cut definition of what a PI is. In other words, do I need to do anything in addition to just satisfy the requirements by IRB for PI status?
So at MSU, the only people allowed to be automatically allowed to be PI on a grant, or to be a co-PI, this not co-investigator, but co-PI, that is faculty who have who are at least an assistant professor, either fixed term or in the tenure system. And
Right.
This does not include adjunct faculty, or, you know, so it has to have that. There is a process to go through to get permission to be a faculty member, or to be able to be a PI or a co-PI on a grant. Sometimes it's required that you request it every time you submit a grant. Sometimes depending on what your role is, and if you're going to be doing a lot of research and you are, you're in like a research specialist kind of position, we can request something called blanket authorization, which would allow you to submit always. We have many specialists within the college who do specific things that allow them to do that. We have a few in PRIME, Program for Math Education, and some others. So it is possible to get that. If you wanted to contact me separately, I could give you information on how to make that happen.
That's what I would like to do, Judy.
Okay.
And also, and this may seem obvious, but just so that I don't have a misunderstanding, it sounds like your office likes to know about the PI's intentions for research after they've established a sponsor and they know the deadline, not before that. Is that correct?
Right, exactly, right. Once they know where they're going to apply to.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, my office just doesn't have time. We've not had time to really be able to help faculty member find funders in my office. I wish we did, but we just don't have enough staff.
Right.
And so that's not been something we've been able to do. Office of Research and Research Facilitation and Dissemination may be able to help with that and help people find sponsors. That's one of the things they have told me in the past when I've had face-to-face meetings with some of the people who work there, that they were able to do, and they have increased their staff over there. So I believe that they might be a good place to go, who might be able to help with that.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I would like to pursue blanket authorization, please.
Great, okay, super. I will email you about that.
Thank you.
I'll send, it will probably be tomorrow, or not tomorrow, probably the beginning of next week.
Beautiful, thanks.
Right, and I'll reach out with the information we need to get that started for you.
Thank you.
Okay, super. Okay, so I'm going to take over for here. We are really close to being finished, folks. So I want to tell you about our Quality COEUS or KC Research Administration System. So it handles everything from submission through the entire life of the award. So basically, you get we're going to submit the grant. If it gets funded, we're going to keep using KC to kind of do all these pieces and keep things moving forward until the award is actually closed out, finalized, and done. So there's two things. So proposals are either submitted via system to system, called S2S just for short. And that's like if we're going to submit into grants.gov. So right now, many sponsors are using a system called Workspace to do that. Well, KC is going to function as Workspace for us. And if any of you were around a while ago, you knew about those little Adobe Acrobat packages they used to use. It takes the place of those. So we're going to be doing our system, if it goes through grants.gov, it's going to be done through our KC system. There are a few exceptions to that, but we'll talk about those if you have one come up. I have one right now that for very specific reason, we can't do an NIH grant, this particular kind of NIH grant through the system to system process, and we're going to do it through yet another system. But otherwise, we call them summary proposals. And these are ones where we're just going to go in, we're going to put in some information, we're going to put in information about the budget, but we're not going to actually submit to NSF with this system. So NSF is a good example of this. We're going to use we typically use Fastlane or research.gov, which is sort of becoming the new Fastlane. We're going to use one of those systems to actually submit the grant to the sponsor. So we're just going to do more of what we call summary work in the KC system. It still has to be done because that's the way that everyone's going to approve and everyone's going to do their COI. So it must be completed, fully approved up to OSP's level prior to the grant submission. This gets really complicated sometimes if you have a lot of people on a grant who maybe have appointments in more than one unit, and you have a bunch of them, and you can't even route until you have all of the documents with a system-to-system submission. So this is another reason why we have our deadline policies that we do that help us keep things moving forward and hopefully get things done on time. So you access it by getting into the EBS system, Electronic Business System here at MSU. That's where you're going to go in and like approve your travel and all kinds of other things. And hopefully you've all been in there already. I am going to show it to you in just a moment. So I've given you a link, so you can either get into it through EBS, or you can get into it with this link itself. Just get straight into the system and bypass the EBS kind of outline. But I am going to show you how to get in through EBS here. Your project specific and your annual conflict of interest are both done through that system. So two-factor authentication. I'm sure you all have it by now. If you don't, you need to get it. It's required to access a lot of stuff here at MSU, including KC. I've given you a link to it if you don't have it. You've got to register credentials for like your cell phone or whatever, your computer, your home phone, whatever it may be. You register through that site. We recommend this VIP mobile phone app. I gave you a picture of it from my phone. So it does not use data. It's something that you can download on any kind of a phone. It doesn't use data. And what's nice about it is if you're even, say you're in the middle of, I don't know, Egypt, for example, just to throw a country out there, you would even be able to get access to your credentials through, no matter where you're at, without having to worry about it. And it won't use data. It just kind of runs the same, calculation on your phone that it's running at the main computer at the same time. If you use a phone or text, because those are other options you have for getting your security codes, your 6-digit codes. If you do that, please make sure you also set something up so that when you're not in the US, you can get access to receiving a text internationally. Because if you've got to approve before it can be submitted, And if you have not set something up internationally and you happen to be at a conference someplace, you're going to have a problem. So by using this phone app, that'll take care of your problem. But if you want to use your phone or you want to use text, please make sure you're setting up a credential for international as well. And you can register multiple credentials. I have 3 registered. I have 2 phones, and I have this app registered, and then I also have my office phone for if I accidentally forget my telephone, and I actually did my husband's cell phone just in case my cell phone dies and I'm at home. The credential can come into his cell phone to his text, and I can get it that way. Because it's important that I be able to get access no matter what. You won't have to be on it every day, all day like I am. So it probably wouldn't be as bad for you, but just to make sure you do have two-factor authentication. And I'm gonna do this part just quickly, and then I'm gonna take you out to Casey quickly. So so when we're doing a proposal, if you have more than one person on your proposal, there's an overhead credit distribution that we need to kind of figure out. We have to, so it's like how much of the kind of overhead pie is everyone going to get? So what we need to figure out is how much that's going to be. So we look at it as what is everybody's relative intellectual contribution to the project. So maybe you're working with one other faculty member and you're both putting an equal amount of effort into it. So we would make that overhead credit distribution 50-50 because you're doing the same thing, or perhaps 55-45 if you're the PI, because you're going to have a few more responsibilities to the project overall as the contact PI than they will. But so sometimes we have to, if we have multiple people, like maybe 3, 4, or 5 people, we're going to have to try and figure out what that portion of the pie is overall. And we're going to need your help to figure that out. So you're going to hear us ask you for this information. If you have a significant intellectual or research contribution to a proposal and you're not the PI, it's coming out of another department or college, you should be getting some kind of overhead credit. Not only should you be getting it, but your college should be getting some, which kind of flows down, and your department as well. So we want to make sure, we will try hard to make sure that you're getting, you know, an appropriate amount, because we see and approve everything that comes through the college. When it has one of our college faculty members on it, we see and approve, and your department does as well. But we need to make sure that you're also fighting for your own effort on it and making sure you're getting what's due you. If you're, you know, if they say, well, I'm going to give you 1% effort, but you have a big piece of that grant that that project that you're actually going to be doing, that's really not fair. So we want to make sure that you're getting your fair share. Everyone's getting their fair share. So the amount, that overhead ends up getting split if you have a split appointment, but there's a piece of it that goes to there's a big piece that automatically comes off overhead and goes to or indirect costs. It goes to the university overall. And then there's a piece that goes to the department, and then there's a piece that goes to the college. So there's a whole lot of factors that go into that, but it's just an important part because that's money coming back to your department, money coming back to your college. And so you want to make sure that that everybody's getting their fair share. The Casey system will automatically calculate an allocation if you have based on your appointment. So if you're in more than one department, it's going to know what your split is between those different departments, and it will calculate it that way. And this was just to show you, this is an example. I used Cheryl and myself. So this is what the Casey system looks like. So in this case, we've both chosen 50-50. Cheryl's in neuroscience. At the time I did this, she's now in the dean's office and in neuroscience. But I'm in the dean's office. So we're going to get split at 50-50. So there's other, it can be 70, 70-30, whatever might be appropriate. And we will talk to you about that and try and help you through that at the time. Once you've done it a little while, you'll start to get the hang of it, but it will be something you'll be hearing about from us. Plan ahead, review solicitations carefully. Make sure you're reading that solicitation. That kind of trumps the proposal guides. So That's the most important thing to read. We're going to make sure we follow formatting guidelines, so take a look at that. If you have questions on that, you can ask us. You want to make sure you're looking for those internal reviewers to help or to help read, and then you're going to ask for help. And then just to show you this before I take you out to the website, just some information about my office. Eric Hegg is our associate dean, so he's my boss. And then you got the names of all of my people. When you want to work with my office, please use the natsci.ors email address. That is the one that is monitored during business hours all the time. And say, you know, we laughingly say if someone got hit by a bus when they were out here at work, because we're just off of Farm Lane and it can be pretty busy outside of our office when you're trying to walk over from another lot. But if someone if I'm in a meeting and you needed me, someone else then would pick it up and make sure that whatever you needed right away got done right away. So that's just an example of how it can be used. If I've got someone sick, if I've got someone out of the office that day, we make sure that we all work together to make sure everything keeps moving forward towards the deadlines. So this is the staff, you had met them earlier. And then this is our website down at the bottom, and that is where we will be posting that video, this video that we're recording now as soon as we have it. I've also given you, just so you know, these are our main areas of responsibility in my office. So if you have questions, that's what we're doing. And then we've given you just some general MSU resources, just for your knowledge, and it's got links out to them too, which could help. So and there's a lovely list of acronyms, because we throw acronyms around like nobody's business. So it's really nice to have, if you don't know what something means, that's a great place to go figure it out. So that's the presentation. And now I just wanted to quickly, I'm going to close that. So this is the electronic business system. I just wanted to show you here. And mine looks different than yours, I'm sure. But if you see the little tile called Research Administration, this is where you will click. This is Quali COEUS. This is the main page. So my office typically will be creating proposals on your behalf. You don't have to worry about that. If you want to search proposals or search for something called an institutional proposal, if you want some help with some of that, we can help you, or your department administrators can. But especially interesting is this spot here that's called conflict of interest. So you can do a new and annual disclosure, and I suggest that every single one of you, if you're going to be submitting grants, that you go out and do this in the KC system sometime within the next short time. Especially, I know a couple of you are working on grants with my office now, so it would be good to get that done. So that's where you can go out and create your new disclosure. If you need instructions on how to follow the system through, we can certainly send them to you as well. Just contact my office, and we have we've put together like some instructions to help you through doing conflict of interest and approving and things like that. And then there's a place where so if you're doing one for a specific research proposal, there's a place where you can go out and click on that and do it. I have this miscellaneous budget one that's out here, and it says I should be doing a conflict of interest for that. So it's just something that sometimes I route to show people what a routed proposal looks like. So it's just my personal, whatever I can do with proposal. But that's one place. If you need to enter a new financial entity, like you have a conflict that you hadn't disclosed before, there's a place you can put a new one in. And if you need to update your disclosure, you can do it there. So this also shows you can view them all and view all your financial entities as well. So just so you know, that's just some of the part that you'll need to go into. For you, if you get an email from us to let you know that you need to approve a proposal, usually you can go in, and if you go to your action list, and please don't let this scare you, but because I have a lot out there that I'm working on, and I have all these little notes. So you'll typically only have a couple things listed. But what you would do is you would be able to go ahead and like click on the ID of it. Just click on this that has a link. And this is that one that I was telling you about. And there would, at the bottom, it would take you to actually this page. Because it's not routing, it didn't take me automatically to this page. It would take me to this page where I could look at some information, and at the bottom it would give me an option to approve. And then the way the system's set up, it will approve, and then it will ask you, do you want to do the project-based COI disclosure? Please always say yes. Don't just complete your approval and then click out. Always say yes, and it will automatically take you in to do that project-based COI disclosure. And then from there, it will say, do you want to update your annual disclosure? And if you haven't done one yet, it will take you there to do that. But if you have done one and maybe it's time for you to update it, you can always say yes and then move on and get that done. And that annual disclosure kind of keeps a rolling deadline. So if I did it today and then tomorrow turned around and said, or a week from now said, I wanted to do it again, my actual next due date for that would be a year from next week as opposed to a year from like today. It's a rolling, that 1 year starts to roll with the last time you were out there doing that. We can help you through all this when it comes time to do that. That's part of what my office will do. So I'm going to stop sharing now because that's pretty much everything I think I needed to show you. And I will be sending you the presentation for today, all the slides with the links, of course, being active. We'll send all this to you, and we'll send you some other information as well about research that you might find helpful. We should be able to get that to you next week without a problem. I'm just trying to update just a few more things to make sure that they're updated and ready for you to move, that they've got the most recent information on. And I'm about 85% through it. So a few more things I have to finish up and do, and then we'll be ready to put it all together. And I'll get the list from the Dean's office to make sure we're sending it to all new faculty. And within that email will be the link to this recorded presentation as well, so that everyone has it. And then any questions at all, feel free to contact my office. If for any reason I'm not in, Danya or any of the other research administrators will be able to help you and keep things moving along for you. And if you have grants you're thinking about submitting proposals and you haven't contacted my office yet, please do. As soon as possible, and we'll get you on the schedule and start helping you through it. And if we need to meet via Zoom or Teams or some manner, we can't meet in person, but we can certainly meet in this way and have a talk. We've done that already with Joe Waldron, and we'd be happy to meet with you, to help you through and talk to you about your individual research projects or what you're planning to do and how we might be able to help with that.